How's it going, everyone? Matt, Leighton, Shawn, Battle. Welcome back to another real estate video, guys. In today's video, we're going to be talking about hacking the real estate contract and some tricks, literally tricks, some of them are deceptive, that you can do to gain some advantage in the contract and things to watch out for when you're writing these contracts and someone on the other side is trying to pull a fast one on you. Shawn, what's going on, man?
Man, it's good. Weather's great, turning, looking good out there. Market is even hotter. It's insane. It's not slowing. It's not curtailing at all.
You think it's hotter than like 2 months ago?
It's hotter than 2 months ago.
Really?
Yeah, I believe it is. I mean, we're seeing a lot more properties come on the market, and we're seeing just as many contracts coming in. 5, 6 contracts. We just had 2 that hit the market this past week. One, honestly, right?
Yeah.
One we did before the open house. Yeah. Okay. He's gonna move something because we got something blocking here. But one we sold before our open house, which I rarely do. I didn't put a deadline on it this time, but we decided to take this offer because it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing the open house anyways, and we did get some people through that were like, oh, I wish we had the opportunity, but. The good thing is, by talking to them, I felt like no one was going to write as good as we had. Right?
Yeah.
So we took that offer, and it was really good. Second one, we ended up getting 5 offers, and I'll give you a scenario on something that I chose after we talk about our hacks. Right?
Yeah.
So market's really strong. You have, as a buyer, you have got to pull everything out of your hat.
So if a property were to come on today, what would you tell the buyer specifically to get that contract?
Waive everything.
Waive everything.
You have to waive everything, or at least everything but your finance contingency. That's what I'm seeing.
What if the buyer's like, I don't want to waive everything?
You can write, but you're probably not going to get the deal.
Yeah.
Or you've got to find some other way to beat those other people out by going way above the other people.
Right.
But then it's contingent on appraisal and all these other things. It's just really difficult. If you're a regular buyer used to a regular market, you're going to have a really difficult time competing. You're going to get frustrated. You have to pull out all the stops to get these properties right now.
Yeah, and I had a buyer client about a month ago. We wrote on a property, and I told them it's going to be competitive. We need to come with our best offer. And they said, okay, the best we can do is list. And I'm like, we probably shouldn't even write the contract. They were like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, it's probably going to go over. And they were like, all right, well, let's just do it anyways. I'm like, okay, great. Do you want to keep the home inspection in there or take it out? And they're like, oh, we're absolutely keeping it in there. I'm like, you do realize that you're going to be competing against offers that don't have it. They said, yeah, we definitely want the home inspection. I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm writing up the contract. 0 chance that they're going to get it. I saw it closed the other day for $20,000 above what we wrote at.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I mean, if you're not in the game, you're not in the game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is I had an offer based, I had 5 offers on Colonial Village unit. Somebody wrote without an agent. They had a lawyer draw this up, and they had no clue what they were doing.
Yeah.
No clue.
The buyer was like, yeah, I'm not working with an agent, so I think that will help me in this scenario. And then we get the contract back, and it's like, from the 1980s, that contract was like so
a lawyer
bad.
wrote it, right? So it was like not even our regional contract, and it was below list.
Yeah.
Below list price. A home inspection for like 14 days, which, I mean, none of the other ones had a home inspection contingency. You have to get an agent representing you that knows this market if you're going to be serious about buying.
I kind of felt bad for her.
I did too.
Because someone is just like, oh, if you don't use a buyer's agent, you can save some money. And she had no idea what she was doing, and she wouldn't have saved money either way.
She probably lost money because she paid the lawyer to write the contract.
Right. Like you're going to be paying more to use the lawyer. It was the most ridiculous thing ever.
So next she's going to go to that lawyer, hey, write me up another one that's an awful offer, and she's not going to get it over and over and over again.
No lender letter, no copy of the earnest money.
It was bad. So get representation. This is important, especially in this market. You have to know the market. You have to know how to write these contracts, or you're never going to win.
All right, let's dive into the hacking the contract. These are things that you can put into the contract that at first glance you might be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, but there's more to it than that. So why don't you start us off with the first one?
Yeah, so the home inspection, you know, there's two ways to write the home inspection contingency. Right now, a lot of people just aren't doing home inspections, right? But there's ways to get around this. So some people will still write a home inspection contingency and do it for void only, right? So that's a hack right there. I mean,
What is the hack?
The hack is you do it for void only, and you have it for a certain amount of time. And say you get the contract and it's a void only. Well, you do the home inspection, you can still negotiate. Right.
That's
so
the
you
hack.
say, oh, well, this looks really good on paper because they're only allowed to void and they're not going to ask us for all these little things. But truthfully, there's still that opportunity to negotiate. Those people, once they have you under contract, they don't want to let you go, right? They don't want to have to go back through and put it back on the market and all this other stuff. So as representing a buyer, you do a void only, and something big comes up or something minor comes up, you can still negotiate and say, hey, how about giving us money for this or else we're going to back out? And usually they'll say, okay, we'll give you something, right?
It works a surprising amount of time. It's just a facade to make your offer look better, and it does look better, but you can still negotiate. Nothing says that you can't negotiate. So doing the home inspection for void-only purposes, then maybe doing a little bit of negotiating in there is the first loophole, first contract hack that we have for you.
And some agents will get totally annoyed by that. I would get totally annoyed by it. But I mean, when you're representing a buyer, that's one thing, and you're representing to the best you can. And so when that comes up, hey, do you want us to back out or do you want to give us $1,000?
Yeah.
So that's one hack. Now, another hack on that home inspection is to do it for informational purposes only. So you still have, hey, I want to do a home inspection for my information only. There's no contingency there, right? But you just say, I'm going to do it. And the key is you do it in the first couple of days when you still have an HOA or a condo contingency.
Yeah.
So you sneak in there, and a lot of savvy agents will be like, no, I'm not letting you in until after your condo or your HOA contingency is gone, because in that time period you can back out for no reason whatsoever, right? So the hack is do it. Say you're doing it for informational purposes only. You're not going to back out based on it. Then you go in before your condo or your HOA contingency is gone. You find something. You back out based on HOA or condo.
All right, so in that specific example, do you write in to the contract, buyer is allowed to do home inspection for informational purposes only?
I would, because otherwise
So you write that in, and then they need to provide a reasonable access. So you're saying that, so have you seen it where agents don't allow access?
Yes.
When it's in the contract?
Yes, so the best thing to do if you do get something like that is to put in there, okay, you can do this, but you have to do it after your condo or your HOA contingency is up. So we will let you do a home inspection, inspection, so you can see it for your own information, but after the condo or HOA are gone, because they can back out during that time frame. And right now, I've ordered these things on a rush. Some of them get there like that. Some of these, they take forever.
Yeah, they take forever.
It's a PDF.
Condo docs.
Condo docs drive me crazy. Yeah. So those are two hacks on the home inspection.
Yeah.
Another one?
What do we got?
So finance and appraisal. There's two hacks on the contract on this side. Yeah. So the first one and the easiest one is to do a really low contingency time frame for these, because the way our contract in Virginia and our regional contract, DC and Virginia, reads is, well, actually, I don't want to say DC, Virginia only. The way our contract reads is that we put in a finance and appraisal contingency of, normal is 21 days, right? That's what I see normally in a normal market. Right now, we're in a weird hyper market. So you could put in there, I'm going to have this done in 3 days, right? Finance appraisal contingencies, 3 days apiece. That means nothing, because the contract actually states that contingency keeps going until you remove them.
Right.
So I could put whatever days in there that I want. The reality is that contingency is going to keep going until I give you paper that says, hey, I've removed this.
Yeah.
Now, do you know how the listing agent would combat that?
So I'm just going to ask, how would a listing agent combat that?
So listing agent would, what you could do in that instance is they put a 3-day contingency and they're dragging their feet. You can send a notice over from the listing agent or the seller to the buyer saying, you now have been given notice. You have to remove these contingencies within 3 days, or they are removed.
So I got a contract that is actually closing tomorrow, seller signing tomorrow, and the financing contingency said 0 days.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, what we could have done was accepted the offer and then immediately sent over notice to remove the financing contingency because they said 0 days.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Well, 0 days, I mean, 0 is 0, right? So
Yeah.
like there is no finance contingency in my eyes if you say 0.
So if it's 0, then it continues up until settlement.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question because 0 days means it's not contingent, right? If they had 1, that would be something different, but 0 means 0. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, this is one
You
of
always
those,
learn something,
those
you know?
gray areas where like one attorney could be, oh, it actually means this, and another attorney could actually mean that. Either way, it's kind of a tacky thing to do,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean much. I think one of our options could be to release the financing and send over notice, and then that person would have 3 days to back out of the contract. But yeah, that's a tricky one.
Yeah. The second one and last one that we have is based on finance and appraisal again. So all the contracts that I saw last week waived their finance contingency, most of them. Or no, they waived their appraisal contingency, but they kept their finance contingency intact. Okay? So we saw this happen with one of your contracts not too
Yeah.
long ago. So, hey, we're going to waive this appraisal contingency, aren't we awesome?
Yeah.
But we still have a finance contingency. So what does that mean? Well, it means a lot. This appraisal could come in low, and the buyer could have some cash, but they don't have enough cash, right? So what does that do? So that, in turn, they're putting 20% down on their contract, and like it appraises $17,000 low. Well, the buyer then has to either change their financing, or they have to come up with $17,000 more, right? But in essence, what that does is changes their specified financing on page 1, and then that then lets them void out of the contract based on
Right.
the finance contingency.
That's right.
So it's a hack right there that you remove the appraisal contingency, but then you can still back out based on a low appraisal. But in my opinion, only if you're bucked out of your if the lender says no, you're no longer qualified for this amount, then you can back out. So an interesting thing came up just this past contract that we talked about before we accepted an offer on one of these. And my opinion was we had 2 contracts. Well, we had 5, but 2 that were very competitive. One was putting 20% down, one was putting 5% down. And I talked to both lenders. The 20% down was, pretty maxed out on their 20, they're putting all their cash down. The 5% one had some leeway. So they were only putting 5% because they were being conservative. They wanted this, they didn't want to put all their cash in, but they had extra cash, right? They both waived their appraisal contingencies. Which contract do you take? So normally, when you look at a 5% down or a 20% down, you go after the 20% down because it's a stronger contract. But when they're waiving an appraisal contingency and they're only putting 5% down, they're already they're approved at a higher LTV, loan to value, than these other people at 20%, right?
Right.
So their ratios aren't as tight as maybe the people with the 20% down. On top of that, the 20% down is putting a ton of cash in. They might not have enough cash to cover that appraisal, whereas these 5% are only putting 5% down.
Yeah.
They probably have a lot more cash if the appraisal comes in low. So going on that logic, I took the 5% down over the 20% down. So maybe I was wrong, maybe I was right. I think I was right in that fact because I talked to the lender and she gave me some information that I needed.
Yeah, I think it's kind of backwards thinking if you kind of reverse it. If you have 5%, if you have 20% down, which offer is stronger? The one with 20% down. But in this exact scenario where you're waiving the appraisal and the loan amount might change, well, that 20% may not be approved at a different amount. So if you change anything on the specified financing, you are still able to back out of the contract. From the listing side, we don't want that specified financing to be changed, which is why Shawn took the 5% down compared to the 20% down.
And the important thing is knowing or being lied to that they have cash
So that's the
on
other
the other
thing.
side. You know,
I mean,
they could be.
what's the
not-
lender's job? That's to make you feel good
Yeah.
and to make you, oh yeah, my buyer, yeah, they're a
They're very
solid buyer.
conservative, yeah.
Their ratios are good. I mean, you might as well be like reading off a script. Yeah, they are very well
So
qualified.
you're trusting in this, right?
Yeah.
So one thing you could do is ask for their, you could ask for their financials, right? See if they'll give you what their reserve cash is.
Yeah,
You could always do that, but I didn't.
yeah.
But that's one way to get around that.
Yeah,
you know?
but the hack being, everyone's like, oh my gosh, the appraisal, it's such a big deal. And it is, right? It is. But if you waive that and you still have the financing contingency, you still have an out. Like, read the contract more carefully. And I'm saying this to myself because we had an issue come up. But read the contract more carefully. That financing contingency, you can do a lot with that if an appraisal comes back at a lower amount.
Yeah, and another thing is, again, on that condo and HOA contingencies, they waive their appraisal and you don't have these condo or HOA documents ordered. They get that appraisal done quickly and they pull out based on, I mean, that would hurt, right?
Yeah.
They're pulling out of the contract based on their condo review period when they've already gotten their appraisal done. So
Yeah.
very important to order these things in advance now. You're not waiting. I ordered them in advance and I'm still waiting on one. So
Do they expire after what, like 90
days? Yeah, so these all are selling so quickly. Order them, a week in advance, if not two, and always order them on a rush because
Yeah.
if you don't, they will take forever. They just take their time. They say, oh, we have until this date to get it. They'll get it to you on the last day.
Yeah.
So pay the extra money, save yourself some frustration, and order them on a rush. Basically, when you sign the listing agreement.
Right.
Just
Right.
get it done. So
We got to order those for the Charleston.
yeah, we've got a unit coming up in the Charleston. Anybody wanting a 1-bedroom den in there? It's a nice unit. It's going to come on next week. I know there's one on the market right now. I know they're getting a lot of attention. So anybody that doesn't get that one, see us. We'll be putting it on next week.
Cool. All right.
Low to mid 400s.
Let's do a quick recap. What do we got?
So contract hacks, home inspection void only. You can get around and you can actually
Do a little negotiating
do a little
in there.
negotiating. Home inspection, sneak it in. Do one for informational purposes only. Sneak it in before the HOA or the
Yeah.
condo contingencies are done. If the listing agent will let you. A lot of
Yeah.
times they'll bar you from doing that.
Piggybacking on that one, you can have a contractor come in for estimates, and really the contractor could, like, I don't know, try to pick apart the whole house to, like, see what's wrong with it.
That's right. Last two, lower the days on your finance and appraisal contingencies. If you read the contract, those days keep going. It doesn't end at 21 days or 3 days or whatever you put in it. It keeps going. You then have to, as a listing agent, send notice over to the buyer saying, hey, remove this or else it's going to be removed in 3 days. And the last one is waiving an appraisal with a finance contingency still in there. You can still, a lot of times, back out of the contract based on your financing. If something gets screwed up or you have to change your financing, you can't get financing in what you wrote in the contract. But if you're overly qualified, you probably don't have a chance. So
Yeah.
be careful. It's a rough market out there. There's a lot of people doing things that we would never advise, but now we have to advise it if they really want the property. So know your risks. There's a lot of risks out there, and you could lose a deposit now. I mean, it can happen because if you can't come up with the cash and you've waived everything, you could find some bad home inspection items later and cost you thousands. Just be aware of that. But, if you want to get into this market, you got to do what you got to do.
Got to be aggressive in this market, guys. Well, in this video, hopefully you learned some awesome contract hacks to get around and maybe do some things, little sleight of hand with the old contract to help you out there in this brutal spring market if you're a buyer. We just had one come on at the Spectrum over at Falls Church. I'm very excited to see it. I've had a buyer eyeing that door.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, you've been working on that one for a while.
that's what I'm doing later today. I'm sure you got like listing appointments, buyer appointments. Crazy
It's
market
crazy.
out there. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, for Shawn and for myself, we'll see you then.
Thank you.